July 24, 2015, two 14-year-old teenagers, Austin Stephens and Perry Coyne, went fishing in the coastal waters of the Florida Peninsula. Despite their young age, they were experienced fishermen and knew how to operate boats. Austin had been driving them since he was 10 years old and could also do minor engine repairs. They spent almost all of their free time on the water, whether it was fishing or vacationing with friends. The vessel they went fishing in that day was a small single-engine boat in perfect technical condition. About a week earlier, Austin had been stopped by a Marine Patrol officer for a routine inspection. No violations were found. All necessary safety equipment was on board, such as life jackets and a life preserver. Around noon, a surveillance camera captured them swimming under the Jupiter Bay Bridge. A few minutes later, the boat comes into the lens of another camera. They leave the bay and head out into the open ocean. At that moment, Austin posts a photo on Snapchat with the caption, "Peace be with you, Jupiter." After Austin and Perry did not return home that day, they were reported missing. A massive search operation was soon organized, involving police, Coast Guard, Navy, and volunteers. During the investigation, detectives discovered that the day before the disappearance, Perez had made some very interesting suggestions to his friend. By writing the following message, "Austin and I are planning to go to the Bahamas tomorrow. Come with us." The Bahamas, aka the Bahamas, is an archipelago southeast of the Florida Peninsula. Austin's girlfriend also said that the day before he disappeared, he talked to her about going to the Bahamas. It is not known for what purpose they planned to go there, but one of the friends of the missing person said that Austin wanted to sail as far from the coast as possible in the direction of the Bahamas and fish for dolphins there. It was later revealed that Perry had asked her stepfather for a GPS navigator the night before. Austin and Perry attached an impromptu map to the message, on which they marked the route to the Magama Islands. What's notable is that the route is not straight ahead, but sort of circles around the islands. This was most likely done to avoid customs officials. After 2 days, the intensive search finally began to yield results. About 100 kilometers off the coast of Daytona Beach, a Coast Guard search and rescue helicopter team found an overturned boat. The divers aboard the helicopter decide to enter the water and inspect the vessel. After checking the registration number and engine model, it became clear that it was the boat of the missing teenagers. Having marked the coordinates of its location, the team headed back to the base to report the find and organize an operation to recover the boat from the water. However, when recovery crews arrived at the location, the boat was no longer there. Despite all efforts, she could not be found. Later that day, a pilot of a private plane who took part in the search reported that he saw one of the missing teenagers. According to him, he noticed a floating object on the surface of the water and went below to get a better look at it. The man saw a man on a makeshift raft. The pilot was circling 100 meters above the water and could see the man below waving his arms to attract attention. Since radio communications are not picked up at that altitude, the pilot was forced to climb to a higher altitude and then contacted the Coast Guard and reported the situation. He noted the GPS coordinates of his location and then returned to shore to refuel. 20 minutes later, a search plane arrived at the location the pilot had indicated, but the man in the raft the pilot had reported was nowhere to be found. With each passing day, the chances of finding the teenagers alive tended to zero, and after 7 days, the active phase of the search operation was over. Volunteers continued to search the coastal waters for several more days. A total of 160,000 square kilometers of ocean surface was surveyed. On August 1st, a cruise ship passenger reported seeing a sunken boat with its bow sticking out of the water. He also added that he saw debris on the surface of the water. It is still unknown whether it was the missing teen's boat or something else. A month later, on September 9th, 300 kilometers off the coast of Florida, the crew of a fishing trawler spotted an overturned boat in the water. One of the crew members dove into the water to inspect the boat and saw a Florida license plate on it. The crew transmitted the GPS coordinates of the find to the Coast Guard. and a search plane flew to the location the next day. But once again, the boat was not found. The boat disappeared. Days, weeks, months passed. There were no clues. Austin and Perry were never found, and neither was their boat. The public came up with various theories of what might have happened to the young fishermen, ranging from an accident to a kidnapping. Either way, their disappearance remained a mystery. Until a certain time, on March 18, 2016, 8 months after their disappearance, came some unexpected news. The crew of a Norwegian cargo ship found an overturned boat in the water. The place where it was found is 1,800 kilometers from Jupiter Bay, where Ustina Perry was last seen. The boat was soon boarded and the vessel was later turned over to the US side for investigation. By checking the registration number and engine serial number, it was confirmed that it was the boat of the missing teenagers. Technical examination showed that the ignition and battery power had been turned off and the engine was in good working order. The fishing tackle containers were still on board. And interestingly enough, Austin's iPhone was also there, because the phone was in a non-functional state. Law enforcement turned it over to experts from Apple to try to extract information from it that could potentially shed light on what happened. The experts would later state that they were unable to do so because the smartphone had been in salt water for 8 months and had apparently gotten into the water while turned on, causing permanent damage to the chips. After the investigation, the commission published a very detailed 128-page report concluding that the boat capsized due to unfavorable weather conditions. At the time of the disappearance, there was a severe storm in the area where Austin and Perry were planning to fish, and it appears the teens were caught in it. A storm warning was issued the same day for thunderstorms and strong wind gusts. But apparently Austin and Perry ignored it, making a fatal mistake. Their last Snapchat message was, "We're kapatted," probably referring to the impending storm. There was no radio station aboard the boat, so Austin and Perry would not have been able to report the distress. There was also no emergency radio buoy on board, which automatically transmits a radio distress signal, and the buoy's GPS coordinates when it hits the water. If at least one of these elements had been present on board, the teenagers would have been found as soon as possible and rescued. After the wreck, the boat was picked up by the powerful current of the Gulf Stream and drifted northward. For 8 months, the boat froze in the ocean until it was found near Bermuda and lifted out of the water. It has been suggested that Austin and Perry were alive for some time after the incident. The pilot of the plane may have just seen one of them. Austin and Perry were able to stay afloat with the help of buoyant items on board, such as a refrigerator, engine cover, and life jackets. According to official documents, there were 3 life jackets aboard the boat, among other things. One of them was found when the boat was first discovered, while the other 2 were never found. Or were they? 10 days after the disappearance, a private search party found 2 life jackets on Georgia's south coast. A specially trained dog later confirmed that the vests were linked to the missing teenagers. But these results were preliminary and DNA testing was required for final confirmation. The vests were taken to a laboratory for analysis. The experts concluded that the DNA found on the vests was undetectable. In addition, there were no markings on the vests, such as tags or inscriptions, that would confirm their connection to the missing Panaros' boat. Austin Stefanes and Perry Coyne were never found, and to this day they are still missing. What really happened to the young fishermen, we are unlikely to know anymore.